Welcome, Sammie. Thank you so much for being here today. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, beautiful Emma. It's so nice to be here with you.
Thank you. And so, when did you know that this was the work that you wanted to do in the world?
I feel like I can trace this back to when I was a kid. I didn't know when I was a child that this is what I wanted. But I feel like in hindsight, it all really makes sense. So is it Oprah that says when you look back, there's these little breadcrumbs and you can link it all together, and it just is so obvious when you look back. So as a kid, I loved self-development, which is kind of weird, but I loved like affirmations. I loved crystals. I loved reading, all sorts of reading. When I was a kid, it was mostly like fiction books, but then as soon as I could start reading self-development, it was always that. I always felt really drawn to talking to people about how they felt about things. Now that I'm talking about it, actually, I remember having one of those dream decipher books and taking it to high school, and people would come, and I'd sit on a field at high school and people would come and I would read their dreams. And I thought about that for a long time, but I mean, there's all sorts of little common elements that feel like they've woven in from when I was young until now. So that sort of self-development or self-discovery, maybe passion or curiosity has always been in me. And I suppose when you say, you know, what was the moment, or was there a moment that you knew? There's a few. It was in my late teens that I just really knew that what I wanted to do with my life was talk to people about how they felt about things as much as possible, like all day, every day. And I didn't know what that felt like. I didn't know what that looked like either. And at that time, I was deciding on university degrees, and I ended up doing something completely different, partly because I didn't completely trust myself and I didn't know what that kind of career looked like. And yeah, and so I think there was a real knowing that it was going to be talk-based, feeling-based, like heart-based work. But yeah, I didn't really know what it looked like. And so it was in my mid-20s, I just fast-forwarded a big chunk of time, but that was all sort of university and first jobs and that kind of thing. My mid-20s, I spent time seeking out what was really calling me. So I was really feeling the pull in. It was probably maybe 24 where I started to feel like, okay, there's something else. There's something better. There's something bigger for me than getting paid by someone else, or showing up to a job I felt really neutral about. And I don't think there's anything wrong with having those jobs. In fact, I think that those kind of jobs can really support us in lots of ways to create what we want to create. I also really believe that fulfillment doesn't need to be found necessarily in our jobs, but I think there's a lot of us now that are being called to find that fulfillment in our jobs, in our work. And it was when I landed on the Coaching Academy website that both you and I studied with that I felt like I found my thing. So I didn't even really know what life coaching was. I'd been searching for life coaching courses sort of with an idea that maybe it was something I wanted to do, but not really knowing much about what it actually was. And it felt like a perfect alignment for me. I remember landing on that website and thinking, I feel like I wrote this copy. Like I feel like this is these words are a reflection of who I am. And I'd never had that experience before. And it was at once really freaking amazing and like, oh my gosh, I found my thing. And also super scary, because it was like, if you're going to do this, this feels like the one. And I don't think that those sort of epic moments of realization are always just super easeful and joyful. It was like, yeah, it was scary. There was fear around it for sure. But I signed up, of course, because here we are, and did that course. And so that felt like an aha moment of, okay, I found my thing. And then that happened again in sacred circle training. As I was training to run sacred circles, I really felt like home, I suppose, is the best way to put it. It felt like this delicious experience of, this is where I'm meant to be. And I really felt that both with coaching and with sacred circles, as well as energy work too. And yeah, so I feel like while looking back, I've known that that's always been within me. This work has always been within me. It took me a little while. I recognized it was quite young in the grand scheme, to find what it actually looked like. And I really strongly believe, in fact, I feel like I know that this is my forever work. So I feel really lucky to have found it so early on.
Yes. Oh, thank you. That was so beautiful. Thank you for sharing all of that. And I love this idea that actually it was the things where you just felt so right when you went closer to them, that you then had to just trust that and follow that feeling. And I think that's the same experience for me when I landed on the website, the Coaching Academy website, and it is just a deep knowing, isn't it?
It's a deep knowing, and it's, as you say, a real trusting, because I imagine a lot of your beautiful people listening into this are maybe stepping into things that other people, like maybe families and friends, don't necessarily get. So it's a real trusting act to sign up, move forward, progress, do the thing, when it's something that is not necessarily the normal structure of life, a typical job.
Yes, absolutely. Self-belief, trust, faith, acceptance. All the things in that moment. And so, how long have you had your business for now?
So I've had my business for, I should know this, 3.5 years. 3.5 years now. Yeah. Actually, more like 3. I think it's 3. Let's go with 3. Yeah.
Go with 3. Thank you. And so, what do you know now that you wish you had known 3 years ago?
There's a few answers I want to give to that, actually. The first one is, I'm kind of glad I didn't know all of the things that I know now, because I think starting, if you realize, for example, how long things take, I might have been less willing to go all in. I don't know, actually. Maybe I would have still, because, soul's work, there's really no option but to do it. But I think that initial optimism can be really helpful. That I'm going to build everything so quickly can be so helpful, with also a dose of reality that things take time and effort to build. I am a believer in balancing action and energy. And when I say energy, I mean energetics. So I don't necessarily think we have to be doing things all the time in order to be growing. But it did still, and does still, take effort and the doing and the action to grow, for sure, and to progress. Another thing that feels like something I probably wish I knew, and maybe I knew it but just not consciously, was that there's no, from what I've seen, there's no greater recipe for success in whatever way we, define that, than showing up fully with your heart. And that might sound like potentially a little ambiguous, but what I mean by that is people are going to connect if you're showing up completely, if you're showing up as you actually are, in the work that we do. I know that to be true. And so, I feel like I potentially didn't get that to the same extent as I get that now. Mm-hmm. when I first started. That feels really true for me now, and it's something I continue to learn. Both of those points actually are things I continue to learn, that things take time, and there's a real cycle and ebb and flow to a business. And I believe a business has a soul of its own, which means it's going through its own sort of journey and ride, and we are co-creating with this entity that is our business. And because of that, and I guess in addition to that, I also think that something that I know now that I didn't know then was that the business growth journey is not necessarily linear. So it's not like this steady trajectory upwards. You have probably seen those memes, I think, on Instagram, like an entrepreneur's journey, where it's like, I'm killing it. Oh my God, this is hell. Why am I here? This is the best thing ever. And I feel like when we're doing our soul's work, when we're showing up as us in our businesses, it's inevitably going to be a bit of a journey. And for me, and no one I know has it been, and for me and for everyone I know, it has not been a linear journey. It's been very much I guess, both cyclic and, up and down.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I can absolutely resonate with that. And I love how you said that you feel like a business has its own journey and its own path and its own soul as well, because I feel that too. And it reminds me of something I read in Big Magic, the book by Elizabeth Gilbert, around how inspiration and creativity is like, you don't have it, it's a partner to you and you work in partnership. And ever since I read that, I just feel so much more able to kind of see it as something that's a living, breathing, moving thing that is working with me. And it's going to have its ups and downs, and I'm going to have mine, but we're a partnership.
Yeah.
So,
and I feel like with that, there's some beautiful practices to bring in if you want to, but just even checking in with your business and asking, what do you want right now? Like, if things feel kind of flat, or if things feel stagnant, or if things feel like they're on the decline, right? Which can happen too. Checking in and asking the soul of your business, what would you have me do? What do you need from me? And sometimes, it's a practice to check in and tune in, for sure. Sometimes the answer might be, I just need a rest. Or I need you to show up more, like whatever it might be, just checking in.
I love that idea. I really do love it. And I think I know the answer to this question based on your description of the up and down meme, but have there been times in your business where things haven't gone as you'd hoped or expected them to?
Mm-hmm. Yep. The example that comes to mind for me immediately is when I first launched. So I had done a lot of pro bono or free coaching to practice. I wanted to get as good as I could get before going out into the world. And then I launched my business, I put it out there, and I had an influx of clients. And I just thought, oh my gosh, this is the beginning of a linear climb. Like, it's only going to get better. And I remember after that initial influx, and I guess looking back now, I can see some potential reasons why. It felt like a real leap or a jump, and then it felt like a bit of a lull, or like maybe a maintenance even of this sort of steady but much slower flow of business. And when I say business, that's not necessarily just clients, it's like workshops and other things as well. And I think, I mean, looking back now, I suppose there's part of me that's kind of grateful for that, because it allowed me time to put systems in place and do all of that really boring admin-y stuff, which I felt was not my top priority, but now I see is actually really necessary. So I am grateful for time and space then. But at the time I remember feeling like it felt really stagnant. That was the word that kept coming up for me, like things feel so stagnant. That, I guess, really taught me that there will be ups and downs. And if I was to look at my whole 3-year business journey, overall, you know, I'm just doing a lot of graphs and a lot of ups and downs today, but overall it would definitely be what looks from the outside or overall like a steady climb, but within that there's been a lot of ups and downs. And that was my first lesson in that, really early on, that it might not necessarily be just like leap after leap after leap. It might be taking a step backwards and then taking a step forwards. And I think that is the entrepreneur's journey, to become really comfortable with things that are pretty uncomfortable.
Yes, thank you. And do you have any strategies and tips that you use for those times where you're on the low point of the graph? How do you cope with that?
I would say 2 things. I'd say make a real commitment at the beginning to choose resilience, because resilience is such an important factor in creating our own businesses. Because while we may be heart-centered entrepreneurs, there's still the realities of building a business. And I think if we just commit and set a really strong intention to choose it either way, even when it feels uncomfortable, and remain resilient, I think that really helps. And another thing would be to continuously connect in with why you're doing what you're doing. Check in with your why, your reason. And I think when we connect back in with that original or initial inspiration that we had, that gave us this beautiful spark to create the thing we're creating, then we recenter back into what it actually is that we're doing. And we get out of the heady numbers or graphs, the ups and downs, you know. Instead, we're just connecting in with our soul's purpose. And that is a really powerful motivator for me. And I think it's, you know, universally a really powerful motivator.
Yes, because it can be easy to get wrapped up in all of the things and the to-do lists and everything else, and it can be really easy to forget the why, can't it? Even though that's actually the most important thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And so whether you have that written down yourself, why you're doing what you're doing, or whether it's checking back in with feedback you've received from your beautiful clients or customers or whatever they might be in your business, just checking in with why you're actually doing what you're doing. Yeah, it's a game changer.
Yes. Yeah, I love that. Thank you, Sammie. And so, what systems or ways of working do you have that support you in your business?
Mm. Again, I think I'm going to answer that in two parts. The first one is much more tangible, and that is actually three parts. The first one is very tangible, and that is I have really benefited from automating as much as possible. So when we talk about systems or structures, things that were taking up a lot of my time but didn't need to, allowing those to be automated. So simple things like having a booking system where my clients can go and book. It saves me time, but it also means that I'm of better service, because for people to book in with me, it's easy. It only takes a moment, and there's no back and forward, which was not great for anyone or me. And with time differences and all the things, it's just been a game changer to implement, a few different systems that are automated that have made life for me and for my clients so much easier. So that's one. The second is what I would consider a system or a structure, and that is to prioritize feeling well above everything else. So, and I know that might not necessarily be what we would typically consider a system, but if I was to look at my business systems or a business work week, one of my biggest values and my best systems is to prioritize all of the things that make me feel so well. And I've experienced not doing this and doing this. And then noticing how my business flourishes, but also is maintained in this really healthy way. So less overwhelm, less being in my head, just showing up feeling as good as I can possibly feel, which doesn't always happen because human. But trying to make that a priority as often as possible to feel so good. And my third point there would be to be energetically open to the receiving part of business. So I think often when we talk about business systems, we talk about creating and putting things out and it being like products or services and what can I do and give. I think that a really integral part of feminine business particularly is energetically aligning and being open to the receiving part as well. And again, I know that because it's not necessarily a tangible answer, it can seem a little soft, but I think it's actually really powerful to tap into the receiving energy and allow yourself to be beautifully receptive to the universal flow, which is giving and receiving.
Yes. And can that start with small changes, small things? I know that's been a lesson for me, and for me it started with me being able to receive things like compliments really well. You know, when someone compliments you, to actually take that into your heart and say thank you rather than brushing it off or pushing it away. And do those daily small practices add up to something bigger?
Absolutely. I think receiving as a whole is a practice for sure. So many of us are really uncomfortable with receiving, whether it's receiving gifts or compliments or someone letting you in front of them at the supermarket, like receiving a beautiful, kind gesture. And so just practicing complete receptivity and gratitude in those moments is a really brilliant way to set yourself up energetically to be a beautiful receptive vessel in your business. And yeah, I absolutely believe it starts there. So in a business sense, you know, it can also start by looking at feedback and really reading it and really allowing it to land, as opposed to like skimming it and going, thanks so much, feeling a bit uncomfortable about all of these beautiful things, and so I'm just going to shift it to the side. I mean, I'd love to hear your thoughts, but I know I grew up in New Zealand and I live in Australia now, and I think culturally there is a resistance to receiving in both of those countries. Does it feel the same for you?
Yes, absolutely. In British people are very resistant, I think, to receiving, especially compliments and, as you say, kind gestures. And I think there's some kind of people are perhaps even a little bit suspicious when someone's really nice to them.
What do you want?
Exactly. And it's funny because when I walk through London, I'm on the underground system there, I make a real point of smiling at strangers if I catch their eye. But what I noticed when I try and do that is that it's really hard to actually catch anybody's eye in the first place, because everyone's like head down, doesn't want to talk to anybody. It's very like shielded. And so there is no openness, and it does feel like an energetic thing, I think.
Right. Yes. That makes a lot of sense. And I think maybe, I could be wrong about this, but maybe that would be common in many cities, like big cities.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, I love that as a daily practice. And I think it's really great that we've had this conversation and how you can bring this out in your everyday, because the people who are going to watch this may not have their business yet. They might just have an idea. They might be at that really early point. And I think what a great way to be able to start now and see how that will come through in the future. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah, pleasure. And I love that. Start before you've started a business. Get so comfortable with the practice and energy of receiving, and then it'll be a total joy.
Yes.
In your business. Yeah.
Yes, I love it. Thank you. And so what would you say to someone who dreams of working for themselves, following their soul path, trusting their heart, and who's right at the beginning of that right now?
Yeah. Oh, that's such a beautiful question. I'd say many things. I'm going to try and keep this concise. I would say if you're feeling curious, follow that, because there is magic in your curiosity. I think there are a lot of people out there who are curious and suppress that curiosity and go, oh, that's silly, it's too much, I don't know if I can do that, all of the things, right? And I would say actually probably everyone experiences that. It's just some choose to listen to the curious voice and some choose to listen to the fear voice. So activate that courage within you to follow that curious voice in whatever way it looks. It might be one small step towards training in the thing you're called to do. It might be setting up a blog or an Instagram page, whatever it might be. Feel that curiosity, listen to it, know that it was for you, that we don't all feel the same level of curiosity and such a pull towards certain things. And I forget that, because I know for me, when people say, I tell people what I do and they're like, oh, I don't know if I'd like to do that. And I'm like, what? Why would you not want to do that? It's the greatest thing ever. Like, it's my life's joy. And I forget that we don't all want the same thing. So if you're feeling curious or pulled to sit to something, yeah, I just encourage you to go with that, like follow that. because if there's a calling that you've received, in whatever way, I know lots of people listening will be doing all sorts of different things. If you've felt the calling, I truly believe that calling is meant for you. It's not random. I really believe that our callings land on the perfect people. Yeah, I'd also, I guess this is sort of circling back to what we've spoken about today, but I'd also say, if you're going to start a business, you really feel like it's your, to use that term we've been using, like your soul's calling, really commit to being in it for the long game. Because our own businesses and that doesn't mean that you can't change your mind, and it doesn't mean that you can't choose something different at some point or work somewhere else at the same time while you're creating what you're creating. Like, that's all fine, absolutely. But I think there's a real commitment to the long game that is necessary to make it happen, because if you're in it only when it feels really easy, then there's going to be many moments where you can easily tap out. But if you're in it with that resilience that we spoke about and that long game mentality, that this is your life's work or this is your long-term work, I think that makes those dips or those more challenging times so much easier to flow with, because you know that grand scheme, you're in it.
Yes. I love all of it. And I love the follow your curiosity, because you never know where that will take you. I was talking to somebody once, and they said that in meditation they were trying to work out what their purpose was, and they kept hearing to go swimming. They kept being told, go swimming, and they were like, I'm not going to be a swimmer. Like, how is this a thing? Like, why does this keep coming through? And I said, well, just go swimming, just start swimming, because that's what you're being called to do. And so they did. And then they met somebody at the pool who was training to become a personal trainer. And they were like, that's my thing. Like, I want to be a personal trainer. And I just think,
love it.
Yes. And life is full of moments like that, isn't it? Full of those special synchronicities where, you could easily dismiss something because you think, I'm not going to be a swimmer. But then you miss the real truth that you were there to find. And so I think it's so powerful, your advice to follow your curiosity, especially when you can't see why you're being called to do it. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. It's so beautiful.
Thank you. Pleasure.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Sammie. I've enjoyed our conversation, as always, so much today. And I think that there's so many golden nuggets in here for the people watching. I'm going to share all of the details of where people can find you below this video, but is there anything else that you wanted to share with our audience today?
That feels really complete for me. I'm good. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me, my love. It has been so good to talk to you.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Sammie. Take care.